Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating transformation happening right under our noses in the digital world.
It really is something.
We're going to unpack the significant shift in digital marketing that you highlighted in the sources you shared with us, articles, research, your own insights. Specifically, we're talking about the surprising decline of the traditional perfectly polished influencer and the powerful, wonderfully messy rise of authenticity.
That's the core of it, yeah.
Our mission is to understand why that perfect life aesthetic is, well, fading away, and what kind of genuine connections are truly thriving online now. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding a major cultural and business transformation that's impacting everything from your social feed to how brands try to connect with you.
And it's important to stress, this isn't just a fleeting marketing trend either. What we're witnessing is more than just a marketing shift. It's a profound societal pushback against manufactured perfection.
A pushback.
Exactly. The sources you provided offer a remarkably clear map of this evolution. They show not just what happened, but why it matters for everyone engaging online, whether you're building a brand, growing a community, or simply consuming content.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally reshaping how we define influence itself.
Okay, so let's cast our minds back a bit. For roughly a decade, maybe a bit more, a very specific type of influencer really dominated social media.
Oh yeah, the classic era.
Right. When you think of them, you picture those high-profile personalities on Instagram, YouTube, and later TikTok with massive followings. We're talking anywhere from 100,000 easily up to millions.
Huge numbers.
And their signature style was unmistakable. Polished, aesthetically pleasing posts, meticulously curated feeds, and always that aspirational, almost unattainable, perfect lifestyle image. It felt like living inside a glossy magazine.
It did. And what's truly fascinating here is how deeply that model was intertwined with human psychology and why it worked so powerfully for audiences back then.
Yeah.
It really came down to a few core elements. First, there was social proof. People are wired to trust recommendations, right?
Ah,
Especially when they come from perceived experts or figures they admire.
makes sense.
So if an influencer declared, "This skincare product changed my life," audiences believed it because it was backed by visuals, a story, and a sense of authority that had been built over time. Second, it offered aspirational living. These influencers appeared to live dream lives, constant travel, trendy food, designer clothes. It offered a sense of inspiration or escape, much like following a modern, more accessible celebrity.
Like peeking into a fantasy life.
Exactly. And finally, there was curated perfection. Their feeds really were like digital art galleries, perfectly color-coordinated, meticulously filtered, thoroughly planned. This created a sense of fantasy and escape and an aspiration that brands were, well, incredibly eager to associate with. They weren't just selling a product, they were selling an entire lifestyle.
It's easy to see why brands were utterly captivated by this model. For a while, it felt like they'd struck gold, didn't it? What were those undeniable benefits that made them fall in love with the traditional influencer?
Oh, for brands, the benefits were incredibly clear. Influencers offered targeted reach because they had already built these niche audiences, whether in beauty, fitness, gaming, or fashion.
Right, they already had the eyeballs.
Precisely. And in the early days, it was remarkably cost-effective, often cheaper than traditional advertising, even with some pretty big names.
Cheaper than a TV ad, for sure.
Way cheaper. And perhaps most importantly, there was immediate impact. A single product mention could lead to instant spikes in sales, website visits, brand visibility. The formula seemed, well, foolproof for a time.
So how did that formula actually play out in practice? Can you give us an example of how a brand might have leveraged that?
Okay, consider a fashion brand partnering with an influencer. The influencer posts a picture wearing their dress at a, let's say, luxurious beach resort.
The classic shot.
The classic shot, yeah. That single post would immediately show off the brand's aesthetic, rake in thousands of likes and comments, and influence followers to want that dress for their next vacation. It was all about creating desire through an idealized image.
But every era has its limits, right? And while that approach was incredibly effective for a time, it also inadvertently sowed the seeds of its own decline.
That's exactly right.
That pursuit of perfection, it ultimately created unrealistic expectations for everyday people, making followers feel increasingly disconnected from the influencer's perfect life.
Yeah, that gap just grew wider.
And crucially, as more and more influencers began accepting paid posts, that all-important trust began to erode. It was hard to know if recommendations were genuine or simply, bought and paid for.
The authenticity started to really wobble there.
So when we look at why this shift happened, your sources really highlight some powerful forces at play, don't they? It wasn't one single thing. It was a powerful, almost inevitable combination of cultural, technological, and behavioral shifts.
That's right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see three main causes for the decline of that aspirational model. The first, and arguably most critical, is trust erosion.
Okay, trust, the foundation.
Exactly. Trust, the most vital currency in any relationship, online or offline, has been so deeply eroded that it's fundamentally reshaping how we define influence itself. It's less about fame now and much more about verifiable honesty.
So why did that trust erode so badly?
Well, over-commercialization played a huge role. Audiences realized that influencers were being paid for nearly every product they showed, and often it became clear they weren't even using the products themselves.
You could kind of tell sometimes, couldn't you?
You really could. This led to a pervasive lack of authenticity. Phrases like, "This is the best serum I've ever used," became a tired, recycled script. People could tell the difference between genuine enthusiasm and, well, just another brand deal. And then, of course, there were the scandals and exposures. Influencers were caught promoting products they'd never used, faking their entire lifestyles with rented homes or staged vacations, or using deceptive editing to alter their appearance.
Right, the mask slipped.
It did. Think of it like a friend who always says everything is amazing. Eventually, you just stop taking their advice seriously because their praise becomes meaningless.
It's true. If everything's amazing, then nothing truly stands out, does it? But, even with all that fatigue, you still see some mega influencers thriving. Is there a distinction there, or are we truly seeing a universal decline across the board?
That's a great point. There are definitely exceptions, and some mega influencers have adapted. But the general trend, the dominant cultural shift, is away from that specific perfect life aesthetic. The second factor driving the change was sheer saturation. At one point, being an influencer felt kind of rare and unique. Now, well, it felt like everyone became an influencer.
Yeah, the barrier to entry seemed to drop.
Totally. We went from a few prominent figures to literally millions claiming the title. This led to content that felt really repetitive. The same style, the same filters, the same brand collabs over and over again. Audiences began to experience what's been called influencer fatigue, just feeling overwhelmed by the constant stream of promotional content.
Like scrolling through an endless catalog sometimes.
Exactly. Imagine scrolling through your feed and seeing, say, 8 out of 10 posts pushing a product. Even if the influencers are different, the effect is the same. You just tune it out.
And then, as you highlighted in the articles you sent, the platforms themselves started to change the game, didn't they? It feels like they were almost reacting to this fatigue themselves.
Precisely. The third major cause was algorithm changes. Social media platforms didn't stay static, they evolved, and they started to favor genuine engagement and entertainment more.
How so?
Well, Instagram began pushing Reels, right? Those short, often spontaneous videos with a much rawer vibe, clearly competing with TikTok. TikTok's algorithm, famously, promotes interesting content, not necessarily popular people. It tests videos rapidly, prioritizes watch time, rewatches. You don't need millions of followers to go viral anymore. You just need content that genuinely hooks people.
So it democratized reach, in a way.
It really did. And YouTube Shorts also began favoring unfiltered moments over glossy, high-production content. The algorithms themselves began rewarding authenticity and relatability, making it much harder for that super-polished, sales-driven content to dominate the feed. The shift was clear. It went from, "watch me live my perfect life," towards something more like, "let's be real together."
So as a backlash to all that over-curated perfection, audiences started craving something different, something real. It's a cultural rebellion, in a way.
Yeah, it really feels like that.
But what does authentic actually mean in this context? It's a word we hear a lot. Let's unpack the 3 pillars your sources highlight.
Absolutely. This trend wasn't random. It's a direct response to years of overly polished content. People reached a breaking point, desiring something that felt honest, even if it was messy or vulnerable. The first pillar is realness. This just means showing life as it actually is, not a filtered highlight reel version. People now appreciate creators who show the behind-the-scenes moments, not just the perfect finished product.
The process, not just the outcome.
Exactly. Flaws, struggles, raw experiences are embraced, not edited out. I mean, a post of someone talking about a mental health dip or showing their messy kitchen feels infinitely more human than a staged perfect flat lay, doesn't it?
It certainly does. We all have those messy kitchen moments.
Right. We all do. The second pillar is transparency. Audiences no longer want to be sold to without full disclosure. They want to know, is this a paid promotion? Do you actually use this product, or are you just doing it for the money?
The hashtag ad tag isn't always enough, is it?
Not always. People want the honest opinion, even if the brand might not love hearing it. Being transparent is fundamental to building trust. For example, a skincare influencer might say, okay, so this serum was gifted to me, and honestly, while it didn't work for my dry skin, I think oily skin types might actually love it.
That honesty makes them credible.
Totally, even if the brand doesn't get a perfect review. And the third pillar is relatability. People want to follow creators who feel like them, not those who just make them feel inadequate.
Someone you could imagine grabbing coffee with.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a fitness creator who shares their body insecurities and meal struggles is often more relatable than someone with a seemingly perfect gym routine and physique. A mom influencer who posts about toddler tantrums and sleep deprivation builds more loyalty than someone pretending everything is always in perfect harmony. Relatable content, fundamentally, is emotionally resonant content.
So the natural follow-up question is, how does this authenticity actually translate into tangible results for brands and creators on the bottom line? Is this simply a feel-good story, or does being real truly impact sales and engagement?
Oh, it absolutely impacts the bottom line, because trust is the new currency, and it's proving to be far more valuable than just a massive follower count.
More valuable than reach.
In many ways, yes. People are swayed by shared values, vulnerability, consistency, honesty. That translates directly into more engaged audiences. Followers listen more, they comment more, they buy more, and they stay loyal longer. The new influencer blueprint, as some call it, highlights that today's most successful creators don't try to be perfect. They make fun of themselves, they admit when something didn't work, they show the process, not just the outcome, and they engage with their audience like friends, not distant fans. They're building genuine relationships, not just racking up reach.
One of the most fascinating developments arising from this shift, and something you touched on in your sources, is the rise of the underdogs, the micro and nano influencers.
Ah, yes, the smaller creators.
Define those for us again. These are individuals with smaller but often intensely loyal followings, right?
Exactly. Micro-influencers typically have between, say, 10,000 and 100,000 followers. And nano-influencers are even smaller, usually under 10,000, often in the 1,000 to 5,000 range. They might seem small by old standards, but they offer something much harder to buy than mere reach.
Which is?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these smaller creators are proving to be much more effective brand partners due to three key factors. First, they have significantly higher engagement rates.
Higher than the big guys.
Often, yes, proportionally. Unlike mega influencers who might have millions of followers but relatively low interaction, micro and nano influencers often see far more likes, comments, shares, and direct messages per post. Their audiences feel like they know them personally, which leads to deeper trust and more responsive interaction. There was a study by Markerly, for instance, that found influencers with 1,000 to 10,000 followers earned something like 4 times higher than those with over 100,000 followers.
4 times higher. That's a massive difference when you think about return on investment for a brand.
It truly is. Second, they offer incredibly niche influence. These smaller creators often focus on very specific, tight-knit communities.
Like what?
For example, a nano-influencer might be a dog trainer posting tips just for pet owners in a small city, or a Brazilian vegan chef with a loyal audience of 5,000, or maybe a language teacher sharing study hacks with high school students. This hyper-focused audience means brands can reach exactly who they want, not just a broad, potentially uninterested demographic.
Laser-focused targeting?
Precisely. And third, they offer authenticity by default. Because they generally don't have large teams, professional photographers, or access to luxury staging, their content naturally comes off as more genuine and raw. You'll often see messy kitchens, unedited selfies, real talk about failures and doubts.
Stuff that looks like my life.
Exactly. This is exactly what audiences are craving now. Think about it. Would you rather take restaurant advice from a celebrity TV chef you've never met, or your foodie friend down the street who's always trying new local places? The choice is pretty clear for most people.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the shift. Okay, so with this new understanding of influence, how are smart brands actually using these new powerhouses in their strategies? Are they catching on?
Oh, the smart ones definitely are. They're now running campaigns with dozens or even hundreds of micro and nano influencers instead of putting all their budget into one celebrity.
Spreading the bet, basically.
Exactly. And this approach results in a far better return on investment. They gain real influence from many small partnerships instead of one flashy post with maybe little genuine engagement. The shift is profoundly from massive exposure to meaningful interaction. The new equation is powerful. Small following plus deep trust plus real content, powerful influence.
This shift isn't just about who's popular, it's fundamentally changing how brands approach marketing. Our sources show several key adjustments they're making, and it's quite a departure from the old playbook.
Absolutely. The strategies are evolving rapidly. First, as we touched on, we're seeing smaller, smarter partnerships. Contrast the old model, paying a celebrity influencer, say $50,000 or more, for one post, which often yielded high visibility but maybe low engagement or conversions.
Yeah, big splash, little ripple sometime.
Right. The new model involves working with dozens of micro or nano influencers for the same budget, but getting loyal, engaged, niche audiences and significantly higher conversion rates. For example, a natural skincare brand might partner with 40 different micro-influencers, all of whom genuinely struggle with sensitive skin, and each shares their honest, unscripted stories. The result is real engagement and real purchases because it feels authentic.
That makes so much more sense. It feels organic, almost like word of mouth on steroids.
It does, yeah. Second, there's a huge emphasis now on UGC, or user-generated content.
Content made by actual customers.
Exactly. This is when regular customers create content about a brand's product, maybe a review, a photo, a video, often without being paid, and the brands then repost or feature this content on their own channels.
Why does that work so well?
Because it feels organic and unbiased. It shows real people using the products in their everyday lives. It essentially turns customers into brand ambassadors without a formal title or payment. Think of a shoe company encouraging buyers to share photos of themselves hiking in their shoes with a branded hashtag, then featuring the best posts on their Instagram. This shifts marketing from, "We're telling you how great this is," to, "Look, they're showing you how great this is."
That's a truly powerful endorsement when it comes from a fellow customer. You trust it more.
You really do. And third, brands are embracing values-based marketing. Today's consumers, particularly younger generations like Gen Z and millennials, don't just buy products. They buy into missions, into values.
So it's about more than just the item itself.
Much more. Brands are now actively looking for creators who embody the same values the brand stands for, whether that's sustainability, diversity, body positivity, mental health awareness, whatever it might be. This builds a much deeper emotional connection, adding significant meaning to the product's story. For instance, an eco-friendly clothing brand might partner with smaller creators who regularly show how they upcycle, reuse, or reduce fashion waste in their daily lives. That connection adds true meaning to the product's story, making the purchase feel more impactful, more aligned with who the customer wants to be.
It's not just marketers adapting, though. The platforms themselves are changing, aren't they? They're no longer just highlight reels, as your sources so aptly put it. What are the major platforms doing to enable this shift toward authenticity?
It's fascinating how the platforms have evolved, really riding this wave, maybe even pushing it sometimes. TikTok truly redefined what content could look like online. Its unfiltered, spontaneous dominance showed that anyone could go viral. Trends on TikTok are built on relatability, not luxury, and its For You page algorithm, as we mentioned, favors watch time and engagement above all else.
It kind of broke the mold.
Completely. It set a new standard for authentic digital content. Then there's Instagram. Once the undisputed capital of polished perfection, it's now actively trying to reclaim intimacy and personal connection. Features like Notes, those little casual text updates, and Close Friends, which lets you post more vulnerable stuff to a private audience, are designed to foster raw, unfiltered moments. We're seeing a clear shift from the inspo aesthetic towards more day-in-the-lifestyle reels.
So even the most polished platform is trying to get real. It's almost a cultural reset within the platform itself.
Exactly. And YouTube Shorts is another example. This short-form video format is now much more personal and less production-heavy than traditional YouTube videos often were. Viewers seem to prefer content that feels casual and real, allowing new voices to emerge quickly without needing huge budgets or fancy editing. Finally, even LinkedIn, which you'd think is the most formal of platforms, is experiencing an authenticity shift. Professionals are sharing real struggles, failures, mental health battles, career doubts.
Really? On LinkedIn?
Oh yeah. Posts about quitting jobs, learning from mistakes, being vulnerable about challenges often outperform those polished success stories now. Vulnerability is increasingly seen as a leadership trait, not a weakness, even in the professional sphere.
What do you think is driving this across all these different platforms? It seems to be a universal craving.
At the end of the day, I think it's simple. Audiences are just burnt out from highlight reels. There's a profound, growing desire for genuine connection over unattainable perfection. Creators who show authentic emotion, real human stories, they get more engagement because people see themselves in them. They relate to the realness, to the shared human experience, flaws and all.
To really bring this home, let's look at some real-world examples from the sources you provided that perfectly illustrate this authenticity movement in action.
Okay, yeah, these three brands, Duolingo, Glossier, and Gymshark, each represent a different facet of the trend, but they share that common theme. They won by being real, relatable, and community-focused. Let's start with Duolingo's TikTok. Their language learning app went viral not through direct product demos, but by featuring their mascot, Duo the Owl, being, well, unhinged.
Unhinged. How so?
Just chaotic, funny, totally unfiltered content. They made fun of their own brand, of TikTok trends, of the pressure to keep up your language streak. They rarely directly promoted the app itself, instead focusing on pure entertainment value. It felt playful, not corporate or promotional. The mascot became this character people emotionally connected with, weirdly enough.
And the result.
Massive spike in followers, app engagement, and huge cultural relevance, all without spending big on traditional ads.
That's brilliant. Turning a brand asset into a relatable comedic character really humanizes it. Who knew a green owl could be so engaging?
It worked wonders. Next, we have Glossier. This beauty brand was kind of built from the ground up with a community-first approach long before it became the trendy thing to do.
They were early adopters.
Very much so. They focused on real users and everyday beauty lovers as the faces of their campaigns, encouraging followers constantly to share their makeup routines, their skin stories, their honest reviews. Their whole minimalist aesthetic and relatable messaging really resonated with a generation tired of heavy glam filters and Photoshop perfection. Their slogan, "Skin first, makeup second," basically told people it was okay to be natural and imperfect, and that became their superpower.
And finally, Gymshark. They really cornered the market on fitness culture in a unique way, didn't they?
They absolutely did. Gymshark grew not by signing huge superstar athletes, but by building a tribe of fitness micro-influencers. They found fitness enthusiasts with small but deeply engaged followings on YouTube and Instagram, and they supported them as ambassadors, as part of the family, rather than just paying for ads.
Creating a community.
Exactly. They fostered a culture of fitness as a journey, warts and all, not just about perfect aesthetics. People related to the stories of struggle, the sweaty workouts, the gains, the transformations. They didn't just sell gym wear, they created a fitness identity people wanted to be part of, a movement they could genuinely join.
So, after this whole deep dive, reflecting on all these shifts and examples, what are the actionable insights you can take away and apply? Whether you're building a brand, growing a community, or just navigating your own online presence.
Look, this isn't just a fleeting trend. It feels like a fundamental shift in how we relate to content, brands, and each other online. So here's what you can take away and maybe apply today. First, be real in your online presence. Seriously. Don't just share the perfect highlights, share the journey, including the struggles, the doubts, the lessons learned the hard way. People are tired of highlight reels. What truly resonates now are the behind-the-scenes bits, the moments of doubt, the stories of, here's what went wrong.
Vulnerability connects.
It really does. For example, instead of a polished post just saying, just launched my product, maybe try something like, wow, it took me 6 tries to get this right. Here's what I learned along the way. That vulnerability builds genuine connection.
And if you're building a brand yourself, how should you think about partnering with others in this new landscape?
Then work with micro-influencers who genuinely align with your values. If you're building a brand or launching something, prioritize that value alignment over just chasing big-name recognition. Ask yourself, does this creator genuinely care about the mission of my brand? Do they actually live the lifestyle my audience relates to? Would they talk about my product even if they weren't getting paid? Trust matters so much more than just raw reach now. For example, a sustainable fashion brand would likely see far more impact working with a small, dedicated, eco-conscious creator than a huge fashion influencer who promotes fast fashion one day and green products the next. The audience sees through that inconsistency.
That makes sense. Be consistent.
Be consistent. Be real. And finally, remember this. Don't chase perfection, chase connection. In a world saturated with filters and algorithms trying to optimize everything, realness stands out. Your content doesn't need perfect lighting or flawless grammar all the time. What truly matters is if it feels human, if it speaks from the heart, and if it invites someone in, rather than just showing off at them. People don't just buy from brands anymore, they buy into stories, faces, and feelings.
This whole deep dive really boils down to one powerful, undeniable idea that seems to be reshaping how we think about influence and connection in the digital age.
I think so. And the most provocative thought maybe to leave you with is this. Real is the new impressive.
Real is the new impressive. I like that.
Yeah. Whether you're telling a story, building a business, or simply sharing your day online, the more you show up as you, authentically you, the more people will genuinely listen, follow, engage, and ultimately support you. That's where true influence really lies now.